All right. And welcome back, everyone, to Strange Planet Podcast. And I will say, right when you think things just can't get crazier, Trump literally just says, hold my beer. I mean, to be honest, I don't even know where to start. But between him bombing Iran without any congressional approval, just we wake up one day and find out this is what he did. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know how to put in words how I feel about that, besides it being unconstitutional. I don't really get what's going on here anymore. And I'm tired of guessing because you're never going to guess it right. You know what I mean? Because he doesn't care and he just won't listen to anybody. And apparently it's okay because we're still going here, right? I mean, how do you guys feel about this?
Well, I'm glad there's still some adults in the room somewhere, even though it's harder to find them.
Where are they at?
Yeah, that's the
Well,
thing.
I
I don't
mean,
really know
there's
where.
some. There's not many. There's not as many as last time. We only have a few adults in the room, but I mean, yeah, I think he's definitely stepping out of line. I know that there are talks of people looking to try to impeach him. I don't think that's going to happen until after the midterm elections.
You're probably right.
But
AOC called for that too, which, I mean, rightfully so. I don't blame her.
I think Warren Buffett called for it too.
Yeah,
So that's like, a thing. But we'll see what happens.
right, right.
But like the bombing is definitely it's one of those Trumpian I'm better than everybody else kind of a thing. So it's like, yeah, I don't have to listen to you guys. I'm the dictator of America now. I can bomb whoever I want.
I mean, apparently, right?
I can throw parades with taxpayers' money to show off my military might.
Right.
He was
No one
pissed about
showed up,
that.
which was the most embarrassing thing I've ever
Not
watched.
even that. He was pissed about the fact that all the soldiers were like smiling and waving to everybody. They weren't the stone cold fucking Koreans, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, my favorite was when he was saluting to nobody because there was no one in the stands in front of him.
Yep.
Like, you can't make this shit up. I'm telling you. And I meant to bring that up too. The whole,
like the whole cap to this whole week of just stuff is him telling, all right, Iran, Israel, no more firing, okay? And the second he turns around, fucking missiles are being launched at everybody.
it's insanity.
They don't respect him. Nobody does.
And then on top,
and I was gonna say, Netanyahu played Trump for a fool.
Oh, of course he did.
Because Trump's whole campaign promise was no more Middle Eastern wars, no more wars. I'm a peace president. And here we are 6 months into his presidency, and we're in another war.
Almost.
And so, like, yes, it's in violation of international law. Yes, it's in violation of constitutional law. He didn't seek congressional approval. Now, detractors will say, oh, well, presidents really don't declare war anymore, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but we had a congressional use of an authorization of force, to go into Iraq and Afghanistan and conduct operations to combat terrorism in other countries. But this was not part of that. This was, a separate attack on a nation that had thus far not attacked us, at least not directly. And Netanyahu was, he's been saying that, Iran's so close to a bomb. He's been saying that for decades now.
Yeah.
That they're weeks away from a nuclear
three
bomb.
months away, 3 weeks away.
Now that we took this action, it was stupid. Number one, because he talks about when Iran retaliated and they shot some missiles at our base in Qatar. They actually warned the U.S. government that they were going to take this action. This retaliatory action. So we were able to get our missile defense systems ready and, no damage was done. But Trump also telegraphed our attack of their nuclear facilities because he said, well, I'm going to consider it. And as soon as they did that, they moved all these vehicles to those facilities and took God knows what out. Trump said that, the facilities were completely obliterated. That's turning out not to be the case,
Yep.
according to the Pentagon. Okay.
Yeah.
And he
I
said
read
that
that
before
recently.
there was an assessment, and now that initial assessments have taken place, that is not actually the case. Some facilities that were, part of that were not destroyed. And also, there's probably very limited damage to the underground cores of these facilities where, the nuclear activity mostly takes place. And also, there are, there's missing nuclear material, refined nuclear material. We don't know where it is. It could still be underground. It could have been moved out by the trucks that were moving in and out, thanks to Trump's telegraphing. So he went about this in the wrong way.
You
And
surprised?
and now the downside to this is that number one, uh Iran has every incentive now to actually continue refining their uranium to the point where they actually can get a bomb.
Right.
Okay. Because their country is getting attacked, by Israel, a nuclear power, by the United States, also a nuclear power. Their only recourse is to really get something to defend themselves with
Right.
as a deterrent from continued attacks, because this just occurred mostly out of nowhere. Um, you know, our latest Pentagon intelligence said that Iran was not, making a move towards building a bomb in recent weeks. Um, that assessment by our intelligence services said that they were not making a move toward the bomb. And even intelligence from Israel, despite what Netanyahu said, also confirmed that Iran wasn't, moving towards making a bomb. Now, I will remind people that, back in the Obama
I was going
administration,
to bring this up, but go
there
ahead.
was an agreement between Iran and the United States, and
Yep.
even Russia was involved. And basically it allowed for Iran to have limited nuclear uh, development, but that they had to let in the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, to inspect those facilities and to ensure compliance, that they weren't actually using
Right.
those facilities for weaponizing their nuclear program. Trump, for whatever reason, probably because he didn't like Obama, said,
Exactly
you
the
know what,
reason.
we're going to leave this agreement. We're going to tear it up. And
Let them
even
have it.
though
Right.
even even though like we used our leverage to get it, now those Trump and Republicans will say, oh, it was a bad agreement because we paid them billions of dollars to do it. That's actually not true. What we did was we confiscated billions of dollars of Iranian funds that were in US banks. So, we froze their assets. So like, when a criminal um, has their assets frozen in a bank, that's what we did. And we said we are going to hold these funds in order to negotiate an agreement where we make sure that you don't build a nuclear weapon. And so, once they were in compliance with uh, letting us in and inspecting their nuclear program and ensuring that they're not building a nuclear weapon, then you can have your money back. That was Iran's money to begin with. It was just Iranian funds that we froze.
Pros, right.
So, like, it's disingenuous that they suggest that we're paying them billions of dollars.
Yeah,
That's
because it's their
not what
money.
happened. We just, confiscated their money, and i.e. stole, and said, you're not going to get it back until you make an agreement. And that's how we forced the deal. Whereas Trump, he's now trying to get a deal with Iran. We already had a fucking deal.
Right?
So
Things were
is
fine. Like,
it's just ridiculous. And now um he's probably galvanized the Iranian population to support their leadership. Because when your country, we know when your country gets attacked, like on 9/11, the country sort of bands together against, a common external enemy. So any resistance or dissatisfaction that the Iranian people had with their leadership, that's now evaporated
mhm.
because they're going to be standing behind their government to protect them from foreign invaders or foreign attackers. And so Israel completely played Trump for a fool. You know,
Which
he
isn't hard.
he said that they were about to build a nuclear bomb, not true. And he got us to militarily intervene directly in Iran, which is something that we have never done before. Now, um, I will say militarily, we haven't done anything to intervene in Iran, but the whole basis for the tension between Iran and the United States is intervention in Iran by Western governments, including the United States. This whole thing started back, way before the crisis in, the 70s and 80s. It happened when Western governments went in and took Iran's oil over, and it was BP, British Petroleum, and we basically said, I think it was in 1953 maybe, that Iranians elected a democratic government, their first democratic leader. So, that was democracy, right? We like democracy, right? I guess.
Well,
We don't know if we like democracy in this country anymore,
yeah,
but
if you're a Trump
historically,
looking,
this
maybe
country
not.
has been pro democracy. So what the United States did, through the CIA, is they overthrew Iran's democratically elected government and installed a dictator and said, okay, well, the dictator is going to give BP access to their oil. And so that was pretty much the entire reason that Iran hates us. That's why they chant death to America, because we went in there and overthrew their democracy. Um,
Wow.
and so the Iranian Revolution in, I think, 79 was basically the Iranian people saying, we had enough of this dictator. And so their whole religious state that they established with their Ayatollah leadership is basically to prevent foreign intervention in their government and their resources. So they have elections, but they make sure that the candidates for those elections are pro Iranian revolution, that they're pro um, keeping foreign influence out of their government and out of their natural resources.
Sort of fixed a
And
little
so,
bit.
and so that, when you look at it from that perspective, it makes sense why they don't trust us, they don't like us, they don't want us there.
Hmm.
And so, after, but they've never, really directly had, like at least the Iranian people have, they're not like anti-United States per se. Some of them are obviously, and the ones that chant death to America, but there's been a long period of recovery in terms of their view of us because we haven't intervened militarily in their country. We didn't invade them like Iraq or Afghanistan. Now, they may not like that we're invading their neighbors that make them feel nervous. But thus far, we haven't really directly intervened in their country until now. And so
Mm,
this changes everything. This, is a violation of international law. Countries will not trust us anymore. Um, and essentially, Russia is saying that, they will, or Medvedev, who was the president of Russia and formerly prime minister while he babysitted that seat because Putin before was term limited. Now he's not. Um, Medvedev said, "Oh, we're going to make sure that Iran is armed with nukes." And it's a mess now
mm,
because of Trump. Um, getting out of the nuclear deal and now intervening in a country where it's not Iraq. It has a lot more people than Iraq. To conduct a full scale ground invasion is just not a feasible thing. This is one once this action was taken, we're we're on a course for disaster
mm.
because now Iran has every incentive to get a bomb in order to serve as a deterrent for further military action on the part of the United States.
Jesus Christ. My question to you too is, so technically what he did is considered a war crime in a sense, isn't it?
It's in violation of international law. I wouldn't say that it's a war crime per se. Um, that term is usually, for something that's like, shocking to the conscience in terms of, genocidal or
Torture.
um, if you're gonna butcher people and or use chemical weapons or nuclear weapons. But yeah, it's in violation of international law.
Wow.
Um, but international law is only as strong as those who are willing to enforce it. And when we have the by far the strongest military in the world,
Right, right.
there's no one to really enforce that.
That's true too. And the only other question I was going to ask you based on this too is because of this, I don't really know how something like this really gets fixed. And even if I did, I don't think this clown Trump is the one that's going to do it, considering he caused it. Every bit of it is really his fault if you think about it. But my thing is, would this cause possibly a rise in maybe terrorism or something now, say?
Absolutely. So,
Mm,
you know, obviously, every time the United States intervenes in the Middle East, there's a strong chance that, anti-American sentiments will rise. And Iran obviously is tied to terrorist groups, including Hezbollah. Now, they're more localized in, the Middle East. In Do they have an ability to affect the homeland? No, but Iran also may have sleeper cells,
oh boy.
terrorists who are here in the United States already and are just waiting for the right time to activate and to do harm to the United
Oh
States.
boy. That's a scary
So
thought.
so I mean, if ever there was a motivating factor, it's the United States
Mm,
attacking Iran. Um, and so if Trump wanted to do this, there was a way to do it, and he did not take those steps. He didn't seek congressional approval, or at least uh, you know seek congressional advice and consent. He just went about this. He misled the American people with what he was going to do. And yeah, and then the operation itself, didn't completely destroy the nuclear program.
yeah, it was like a
It set it back a few months. And so, now what? I mean, if they decide to, repair their facilities and then continue their nuclear program and then decide, well, might as well enrich the uranium all the way to, you know,
Right?
um, you know, uh, it was a huge mistake. Um, if he can get them to make a deal, then it might salvage some of it, but I doubt it would be as good a deal as we had under the Obama agreement, where they had inspectors on the ground to ensure compliance. Um, I'm not sure that's in the cards this time. And
Jesus.
Netanyahu is um he's not an agreeing type of guy, as we see with the war against the Palestinians that he's conducting.
Got that right too.
He just wants to kill and destroy as much of that country as he possibly can. Um and now we're the United States military, and the finances of the United States are his Netanyahu's tools for achieving that.
Jesus Christ. And you figure this is a like he's had plenty of fuck ups, but this is a major one. And now the next question I'm going to bring to you guys is this. How many things is this guy going to break before something serious ends up happening? Or will someone step in at some point and maybe help diffuse some of this? Because I hate to say it, but like we were talking a couple of weeks ago with the same topic, and I just kind of feel like if we just keep letting him do whatever he wants, this really is going to be America the season finale. Like, you know what I mean? Like we've never
Well,
seen anything
the
like
time to do something was before the election. The
that's
American people
true.
didn't do it. And
Yeah, that's
so
true.
now we're having to live through the consequences,
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a fair point.
at least until the midterm election when,
If we have a
we,
midterm election, but
Yeah, if we can get
right.
enough people, and we're gonna have to get some Republicans to vote too. If we can get enough people to fucking impeach him, that would be great.
yeah, I
That
mean,
would definitely.
but
But then
impeach doesn't
again,
mean remove. That's the
then
problem.
we have because he already was impeached
Yeah,
twice.
twice. This would be his third time if it actually happened. You know what I mean? Like, I almost
Maybe
feel
the
like
third
it's,
time's a charm. I don't know.
yeah, one can only hope at this point. But it just for a split second, imagine if Biden or Obama decided to do something like this. I think Janine DiPiero's head would just blow up in the middle of Fox News.
Yo,
You know what I mean? Like,
whoever
but it's okay because Trump did it. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't get the hypocrisy with this. I
whoever
really
Trump's
don't.
press secretary is, I have to give her credit. She's creative with her bullshit lines.
Well, she's like the other little crone.
Oh no! She's
She's
worse, in my
probably
opinion.
better. Yeah, she's probably better. But it's the same concept where it's just some
Oh yeah,
black,
it's
you know what I mean,
bullshit. It's all
mutant.
bullshit.
Yeah, and she just sits there and just lies. She gets they're like professional liars. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I love the bombing situation. Like, oh, with this and that, and the report that everything was a bomb. And she's like, the targets were hit. That means they were destroyed.
Yeah, okay.
Like, no,
No, it
no,
doesn't.
that's not true.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, that is not true. I'll tell you another thing. You brought up the whole thing about coming out voting, coming to midterms and whatnot. We just had literally last week, actually, it was the day of that circus, what do you call it, parade there, PER, as the president would say too, parade. But yeah, but if that was the biggest protest in the history of this country, if I'm not mistaken,
No
you
King's
know,
Day. Yeah,
so you would hope, yeah, the No King's Day thing. That was insane. Like I knew people were going to show up, but a lot more than I thought came out. So you figure if they came out for that, you need that same result come the midterms and then next election too. You know what I mean? So then it gives you a
but
little bit of
that's
hope. But
that's so far away, and people are so swayed by bullshit. We should have had him
mm,
last,
that's
last,
true.
last vote, and we should have won. And the reason why we didn't, you want to know why? I'll remind all you people back at home when they voted for him. Groceries. That's what you voted for. Fucking groceries. How much are there now?
Yeah, but it didn't do anything. Yeah, he
Into
didn't do
shit.
shit there. He didn't do any. Pretty much, he backtracked on everything he's ever
Yeah,
promised. But he did that last term.
of
We
course. But
knew
it's just
this,
like
but the cronies don't get it. You know what I mean?
when you don't understand that the person who's talking to you is a pathological liar, will
Mm-hmm.
tell you anything you want to hear just to make sure he gets your money or your vote
Right?
or both or whatever. Just gonna lie straight up and down to you. Will tell
Yep.
you that the sky is purple and that water is dry. And then it's the fact that you guys believe it. That you're like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm gonna trust him again and see
Yeah.
what happens. It the definition of insanity is doing something and then repeatedly doing something, expecting a different result.
Mm-hmm.
So things are not going to change under Trump. They're only going to get worse. He's going to
Yeah.
have martial law at some point once he gets the military under his wing. He's going to take your retirement money. He's
Yep.
already locking
Medicare,
people away who
Medicaid.
are U.S. citizens. He doesn't give a shit who you
Yep.
are.
No, of course not. He don't give a fuck about any of it. Even his own crew. Those are the people he thinks about the least. They
Yeah,
don't know that
it,
somehow, but
it's it's funny that he joked. Well, yeah, I'll be a dictator on day one. Yeah, he was a dictator on day one, and two, and three,
3 and 4.
four. What day are we on now?
Yep. Yeah. I guess right over their head it went. It's easy. Americans forget easily, apparently. It's very
Yep.
sad, but it's
And it's
very
not even
true.
that too. It's just that like 50 years ago, even 30 years ago, none of this would have flown. As soon
No,
as we all caught a whiff, we would have like, nope, we would have shut him down. He would have been
right?
buried under litigation after litigation. But for some reason, he gets a pass. He gets to, strut his stuff and do what he wants and fucking grab him by the pussy, whatever the fuck the other shit
Right?
he does. And
Sell
nobody says
Teslas
boo.
on the front lawn, a White House front lawn. Like, what the fuck was that? Right?
I just don't. I don't
Imagine
understand
if
why
Bush did that. Like,
I do not understand why the American people continuously vote for this man who does not give a shit about them at all.
Yeah,
Not
and
only doesn't give a shit about them, he wants
he's
all
about to
their
go
money.
broke. He's about to go broke, and then he gets to sell billions of crypto for
right?
his scam
I'm just
coin.
gonna make us some crypto and
And
I'm gonna come out before I turn president. And I'm gonna make
yep,
$81 billion.
And there's no telling where that money came from that's on that scam
Oh,
coin
that came
either.
from a whole bunch of rich people who he sold them to.
Yeah, probably foreign too. Yeah, yeah. There's no way you'd know. That's why I think that whole thing is a scam, to be honest. But that's a conversation for another episode.
You know what's funny? When you're like walking around the city and you got the guys like, hey, I got all sorts of stuff for you. You want it? You want it? That's what Trump is.
Yeah,
Like,
basically.
hey, look what I got. Look what I can do. Look what I got. Look at my plane. That was given to me. He's like one of the shadiest people in the world. Everybody loves him. Well, not everybody, but it's just
Yeah, definitely not everybody, that's for sure.
what
he
the
was he,
actual
he
fuck.
was about to be held accountable, and
And then gets a pass.
unfortunately,
Yep.
he got bailed out
He got bailed
Yeah,
out
by
last minute.
voters.
that's exactly the rundown right there. It really is.
I
He
still
was,
think he
he was
cheated.
at choke point, and then
I
somehow
really think I still believe he cheated
Nah,
somehow.
The
Some way,
American voters
he
failed.
tilted that
They
scale.
failed.
the only thing I'm going to add to fuel his fire a little bit, real quick, is if you really paid attention to the campaigns from 2016 and then the 2024 one there, like he seemed shitting bricks in the 2016 one to the point where he literally asked Russia for help.
Yeah.
But this newest one, didn't he seem very laxed about the whole thing? I felt like
Yeah,
he
he
wasn't
thought he lost.
panicking.
He was like,
It
"Oh,
felt like
whoa,
he
we
won
won."
already, or he knew he won already. You know what I mean? So there is, I like Rook said, it's probably not the case, but he's a shady, prick. So like, I mean, I don't trust
I
him as far as I could throw him.
I would not
He's
put
a fat fuck, so I'm not
anything.
throwing him
I would
far.
not put anything past him.
Yeah,
I would
not at
believe
this
that he
point.
sold his grandmother's pearls to pay for his golden toilet. I
Yeah,
would believe
possibly.
anything of that nature. It's just there's no way someone this horrid, was able to claim the presidency when we were all like, yeah, Kamala Harris is going to win because the right thing to do.
Yeah,
And
you
then
think, right? And she called it, I hate to say, but she even said, I remember during the debates, give him 6 months and he's probably going to start a war. And look where we
we're
are.
pretty much there.
Yeah, look where we are. So it looks like she was pretty spot on. Unfortunately, but
I'm just waiting for the report that says, "Hey, we're tracking nuclear missiles coming in from X country to the United States, whether it's Russia or China or fucking anybody else that he's pissed off."
yeah, because I just feel like he has the temperament of a child. So you realize if
Is
someone just says the wrong thing to him, how do we know what he did to Iran he won't do to someone else? We
he
don't.
absolutely will.
Yeah, we won't know though until after it happened. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because he's not doing it through the process that's, you know what I mean, set in stone that every other president had to follow. You know what I mean? So, like, I just don't understand how any of this works anymore. And if anyone thinks any of this is normal, like, you're wrong. None of this at all is
No.
normal. And it's getting to the point where it's probably going to start getting very dangerous. And then what do we do? You know what I mean? It could be too late then.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we cannot wait the 4 years. We have to get him out. I mean, not that JD Vance is anything better, but I mean, at least with JD Vance, we could kind of sort of get him in line.
Even he's a prick though, too. I can't stand.
Well, we may have to impeach him too, and then go speak.
Yeah.
And then once we do whatever Johnson's name is, and we'll get him out. I don't know. It's
yeah.
You know, it's like everyone says, you know, if you want to make a change, you got to vote. Well, we voted. What happened?
I'll tell you, part of the problem is the two-party system. We really need more. You know what I mean? Like most other like civilized countries have like 4 or more, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
This two-party system it's causing way too much division. I remember for a while, even Andrew Yang was talking about trying to come up with a possible third one that kind of combines both into one in a sense. But I haven't really heard anything since then, so I don't know if he's still working on it. I don't know what's going on with that. But I feel like something like that isn't a bad idea. You know what I mean? Because I think the situation most Americans are now is we have Republicans that are just out for money in themselves and the rich, and then Democrats that can only do so much with the Republican majority Supreme Court. So it seems like when they call them do nothing Democrats, which to a certain extent, I can see why they would say that.
All right. Well,
the power level, they can't. You know what I mean? So as long as that don't change, we ain't gonna see anything fucking change in this country.
Thing is, one of the reasons why the Democrats, you know, seem like they don't do anything. This is they do it by the book.
That's true.
You know, they go through the proper channels. They don't outright do things that they're not supposed to do.
Yeah, they don't bomb nations without congressional approval.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone has to uphold norms.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Or the Constitution.
Yeah, the Republicans want to say they're the party of law and order. And it's just like, well, we're the ones that are enforcing it, apparently.
Yeah.
You guys aren't doing shit.
I just love when I hear that the Republican Party is the party of the working class. That is the biggest crock of shit I think ever told. Because their actions couldn't prove otherwise. You know what I mean?
They're not the party of the working class, the party of the class that works.
Like it's unbelievable. You know what I mean? And that's another thing that cracks me up. I guess the debt in this country is really not that important. He's about to add another $3 trillion if this fucking bill goes through. And then all the billions are going straight to the 1%. And it's adding to the debt.
It's the funny thing is like you'll have this big book of stuff that says, excuse the print and everything. It's a metaphor. Big book of laws and stuff that says, okay, I've read through this, and basically what it's saying is that you're going to give the extremely rich an extremely big discount on their taxes at the extent of the average everyday human Americans,
working class people, right?
And then you expect everyone to just be okay with this, but they lie about it. Oh, it's not going to do that,
and then it does. Yeah, and then it does in the end. Okay. All right, and I guess as the season finale of America continues, will America get morals and integrity back? I guess we'll find out next week on Strange Planet Podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next week. Peace, and may God help us all.